stop. Second, and much more importantly, are you kidding me, Aang? You're apologizing for stealing the notebook? You feel bad about that? Taking information from the man who's actively trying to kill you? Get a grip, you know? This is just a really rough episode for Aang in general. Like, Zuko starts to attack him and Aang blows air at him and then immediately apologizes for it.
I'm sorry. I didn't mean to hurt you.
What do you mean you're sorry, Aang? You've used violence for self-defense for this entire show. Look at that. A few episodes ago, you were throwing plates at this guy's face. You think that doesn't hurt at all? Getting your face all plated up? Why didn't you apologize for that, Aang? Why didn't you say you were sorry when you hit the guy? Look, I get that Aang says he hates to fight, but this never has any meaning to the things he actually does, in the show. Let me say this again, Aang has to fight. This is something that comes up all the time, and so it's just infuriating to watch him repeat these big principles so often, and only when the show decides they want him to look virtuous in the most boring way possible. And I know what you're about to say. Big Joel, Aang is inconsistent in the original show too. He says he doesn't like to kill, but it seems like he kills people sometimes. Isn't that the same problem? And no, it's not the same problem. Not at all. I was about to talk about this for like 10 minutes, but then decided it was too boring. So if you're interested in hearing my thoughts, I made a little Joel video for my second channel. It'll be out... Who cares? Back to the flashback, and Ozai is fighting Zuko because of the disrespect he showed the general in his war chamber. This version seems to want to paint Ozai with a much more empathetic brush. It doesn't make him a good guy, but it does make him human. Now, Ozai looks sad and burdened as he burns his son. He seems to believe in his own insane way that this is necessary. And later on, he talks about how Zuko needs to be banished if he's ever going to become the man he's supposed to be.
Well, since you seem unable to learn within the walls of this palace, perhaps the demands of the world outside will prove to be a better teacher.
In the original show, Ozai basically does not care about it. It doesn't seem like he burned his son for any reason besides evil and cruelty. His face doesn't appear in that episode, and we're meant to only think about Zuko and his tragic past. Now, I actually like that, kind of. I don't need to be directed to give a shit about this horrible abuser. Don't need him to be humanized particularly. But even so, I can begrudgingly respect these changes and will reserve my judgment when the two following seasons come out. Still, there's one thing that bothers me about this characterization, and it's this Iroh line in the very first episode, the one I already mentioned.
Say we find the Avatar and you're able to defeat him. A mission your father believed to be impossible. And so your return home may be unexpected.
See, this line could make sense, but it doesn't reflect the actual attitudes of this show's characters at all. Ozai doesn't seem to want to banish his son forever. He seems actively invested in raising him to be a certain way, much more than he was on the original show. And because of this, I have no idea why Iroh is making this point, where he's getting it from. This is a really important line from Iroh. It's supposed to establish Zuko's entire conflict, but it just kind of feels like he's making shit up. In the present moment, Aang and Zuko have an interaction that's lifted essentially verbatim from the original show. The scene where Aang tells the wounded Zuko about his old friend Suzon and talks about the possibility of friendship.
Like Suzon.
This is, without a doubt, one of my favorite scenes from the first season of Avatar.
We knew each other back then. Do you think we could have been friends too?
Of course, the moment is less impactful in the Netflix version. Aang's performance seems more preachy and less emotional, but that's not really my problem here. No, my issue is that we already did this scene. Aang already tried to be friendly with Zuko, already reflected on the things they share in common.
Your characters are so neat. I can never get mine like that.
Zuko already rejected Aang, made it clear they can't be friends. There is absolutely nothing that this scene does that the Wayward scene 5 minutes ago didn't do. So in the end, what could have been, what should have been a really great moment just feels self-indulgent. It's just like having grandparents sing the intro in the first episode for no reason. The fans like that scene, right? So let's throw it on the pile. As it turns out, in this version, the division of soldiers that Zuko wanted to preserve are now the crew on his ship. He saved their lives with his actions. So that's cool, I think that's kind of a nice touch, but Iroh says this line about it.
We are the 41st. And you're all alive because of my nephew's sacrifice.
So I know this is pedantic, but bear with me. I don't think Iroh's correct here. I don't think Zuko made a sacrifice to save the lives of people. What Zuko said in that war chamber was an expression of his inner goodness. his inability to see the world through the pragmatic and twisted lens of the Fire Nation. And that's not a sacrifice, because sacrifice requires more knowledge. The choice to lose something or be harmed in order to preserve something else. When Zuko says this line, he cannot even imagine what the consequences will be. He thinks his father loves him. So is that nitpicky? Is that a silly critique? Well, maybe, but to me that word, sacrifice, it blunts the raw tragedy of Zuko's story. The fact that he spoke out as a child and said what any child would upon learning that a great evil will occur. The fact that Ozai's actions are nonsensical and incomprehensibly cruel. Iroh's line makes Zuko out to be a hero, but he's not a hero. Not here at least. He's a kid, and that matters. It matters to the story. So that's kind of the end of the episode. Aang gets away and helps his friends. And for fun, let's just go over all the plots that are left entirely unresolved here. Number 1, Heibai. In the last episode, Aang really cares about the destruction of his forest, and we see Heibai, the spirit who's been wounded by its destruction. We never see or hear from him again though. He doesn't come on. Why even frame the episode this way, around the destruction of this forest, if you don't care about it at all? Number 2, Sokka and Katara. In the last episode, they were left to remember their sad backstory, but what becomes of it? They never have to face some conflict or deal with the situation they're in. It's just an arbitrary flashback, and then Aang comes in and ends it, and that's it. They don't even seem particularly taken by their experience. There's nothing to it at all. Number 3, the fucking totem. Why did Rankin steal that totem? Why did he do that? Is that not supposed to matter to me? Did he just take it for no reason? Maybe it's supposed to feel mysterious or something, but it don't feel mysterious to me. It just feels kind of empty and confusing, purposeless. Why did he take that totem? So if you're wondering, how's he gonna top that, you know? Daddy's sippy cup is such a great glass, there's no way we have an even better one. Well, I'd like to introduce you to something. Papa Juice. Papa Juice. Pretty cool. This show's pretty stinky, right? At the start of episode 7, Team Avatar is finally making their way to the North Pole, and Aang gives this rousing speech.
This whole time, I've been worried that I don't know what I'm doing. And the truth is, I haven't learned any of the other things. And I'll probably continue messing up.
You know, as we're coming to the end of this show, I gotta admit something to you. Half the time, I don't even know what this kid's even talking about. When did you screw up, Aang? What mistake did you make? I don't remember that. You're so down on yourself, man, and I really don't know why. You didn't do nothing. They get to the Northern Water Tribe and attend a big banquet there. And honestly, I just gotta show you something.
Steam sequence. Is it good? What's it taste like? Like home.
Do these people even know each other? Why are they this uncomfortable in each other's presence? Are they friends? Why do they seem like they're in pain right now?
Like home.
What is going on? In the next scene, Aang is talking to P-2, the waterbending master, about the incoming Fire Nation invasion.
What do you think is the best approach to the coming battle? Might I suggest you lead the offensive front? You could spearhead an attack.
Actually, airbending is primarily a defensive at this point. Our style is to evade and avoid combat.
So originally, I thought this moment was another affirmation of Aang's pacifism. He can't help the Northern Water Tribe because he's so against violence. But that's actually not the case. No, this scene doesn't work to remind the audience of Aang's beliefs, but his incompetence. He doesn't know the 4 bending disciplines yet, and airbending can't be used for offensive strikes. And that's why he needs his friends to help him.
We've heard stories of how you saved communities, defeated the Fire Nation platoon. How were you able to do it?
So that's not true, is it? I mean, we've seen Aang fight. He doesn't just avoid people, he fights just fine. But also, Netflix Avatar goes out of its way to show us an extremely boring airbender fight sequence in the first episode. Are these guys just avoiding and evading, or do they repel invaders with their air attacks? It's the latter, as you can observe. So maybe look into your own abilities, Aang. I don't know what to tell you. Figure something out. Imagine being Kaku right now. The Avatar came to your tribe with news of an incoming massacre. He's here to help, he says. And then you say, okay, what were you thinking? How are you gonna help? And the boy just says, blankly, I don't fight. I can't do that. He's lying about that, but you can't call him on it. You just have to look at him and walk away. Horrible. So Katara thinks she's gonna do some waterbending training, but unbeknownst to her, women can't learn to fight in the Northern Water Tribe.
I'm sorry, but women don't fight.
Fog. One thing I really like is the dummy that Katara practices healing on. I know it's subtle, but this object feels so real and handcrafted and perfect, and just looking at it is one of my favorite things in the whole show, honestly. Look at that. Definitely in search of some way to fend off the Fire Nation, Aang talks to the depressed Avatar. So look,
Just ask Avatar Kuru.
this scene is important because it cements a conflict for Aang that's kind of inbuilt into the whole show. Does the Avatar have to work alone? Gumi says it, Roku says it,
Friends can be a liability.
and now we're gonna deal with it. According to Karuk, the Avatar having friends only endangers them. He must fight his own battles without help.
The Avatar must walk alone.
Okay, so this is just a matter of taste, but I really don't enjoy the idea of this conflict. As I've already discussed many times, the main characters in Netflix Avatar already feel quite far from each other. They don't talk really, they don't feel like friends. And this conflict feels like just another way of separating, making them feel like strangers to each other. In the original show, Aang and Sokka and Katara are partners. Their relationship isn't constantly mediated by the awesome responsibilities of the Avatar because they share those responsibilities and do so because they love each other and want to save the world. Yes, this problem does come up, but it's in like the 8th episode of the show and it's resolved in the first minute of the episode.
We're not letting you go into Fire Nation, Aang. At least not without your friends.
But this added conflict tells us one thing: these people are not a team. There's the one chosen one, and there are the characters who are there to orbit him, who are secondary to the task of defeating the Fire Nation. And I don't like that. It feels unfun to me. Still, this feels kind of silly. Aang being worried for his friends, wanting them not to fight, it's a reasonable enough conflict, and if it were done properly, it could be good. So you know, we'll see how it shakes out. Yue, the princess of the Water Tribe and Sokka's love interest, talks to Sokka. He shares with her his insecurities about being a bad warrior, and she reassures him.
Your heart. That's what makes me warrior.
You know, this is now the 4th time this Sokka conflict has come up, but even now, I find myself saying what I said the first time it came up. I have no idea what this conflict is about. Because yeah, we know this guy failed to navigate a ship when he was a kid, but that failure doesn't have any actual implications on the story of the show. His physical abilities or acumen aren't ever tested. There isn't a single moment where he tries to beat someone up and fails and is forced to regain his abilities. It's just, they tell us he's bad at being a warrior, something we don't see, and then they tell us he's actually good at being a warrior because of some inner goodness, and again, we don't see that, and then that's it. That's Sokka's main plot this season. Haku tells Katara that she can't be a warrior because it's not traditional and because women are too weak.
You're not strong enough. Women aren't strong enough.
Then she vents to Aang about it, and he says this.
Maybe we should listen to them. Maybe it's better if you didn't fight.
A lot of the time when I criticize this show, it's because it doesn't feel fleshed out enough. A character says something that feels like it comes out of nowhere, or that feels incoherent, or feels contrived. That's not the case here. Aang telling Katara not to fight makes perfect sense. He just learned that lesson from Karuk 5 minutes ago. Likewise, Katara's reaction makes sense. She's a passive character, and she acts passively, absorbing Aang's words and saying very little in return. The conversation makes perfect sense, but see, that's the problem. I'm sorry, but Aang shouldn't side with the chauvinist pig telling Katara that women can't fight. He shouldn't do it. Honestly, I think this kid should maybe be a bit more like Aang, you know? The kid who respects Katara, who immediately tries to subvert Paku's traditions and teach her bending, who's willing to sacrifice his own education because of this injustice. Upon hearing Aang act this way, Katara shouldn't just look sad and weepy. She should yell at Aang, act like his equal, be a human. We can go on and on and on talking about how this is a new show, and how it can make new creative choices, and of course it can. But when these choices take characters who are likable and interesting and good, morally good, and makes them flat and dull and cowardly, you know, I'm not going to enjoy that. Avatar is a show that demands I root for its main characters, and I don't root for these people. I hate them. And I don't care about creative license. You know, crucify me. Put me on the cross like Jesus Christ and kill me. I don't care. I don't like it. So Katara fights Baku and does a good job and everyone's proud of her. We'll talk about how that story ends in the next episode, but for now, I'm just interested in what Katara says to Aang after the fight.
You said you're afraid of losing us, and that's why we can't stay by your side. But it's my decision to fight, not Paku's and not yours.
As I already mentioned, this conflict, Aang wondering if the Avatar has to work alone, it's been a theme throughout the entire show. And so this resolution just feels shockingly unsatisfying. In the end, this big problem Aang has doesn't actually help us learn anything about it. Aang doesn't try to tackle some problem alone and then realize it can only be solved with friends. He doesn't try to work with friends, only to have some harm come to them that forces him to question their presence in his life. No, it's just like every other conflict in this show. One character says something, and then another character says something else, and then that's it, and we call that the story.
Kuruma, Roku, Kyoshi, they all said that. I need to do this by myself. This is the past. And only one person can tell you the future. The person who writes the legend of Aang.
And in this process, Aang's beliefs are never given weight or consequences. We never get to see what this person is made of. So it's like, what's the point of talking about it? Anyway, this is the shortest episode of Avatar, and I guess I have the least to say about it. Let's get into episode 8, When the Nasty Boys Come. And for my final feat, I'll be drinking lukewarm, bad wine out of the toilet. This video's been fun, right? Subscribe. So we start episode 8, and would you look at that? Is that Aang fighting some people? Using a stick and bashing a guy's face with it? I thought he could only avoid and evade with his powers. I guess they resolved that problem off screen. Nice. Zuko and Iroh have a conversation, and Zuko says this.
Lu Ten would have been proud to have you as his father.
I don't know if my mind is just completely rotted, if that's why tiny things about this show bother me so much, but when I watch this scene, what's supposed to be this big emotional moment, all I think is, Zuko, Lu Ten did have Iroh for a father. Lu Ten was Iroh's son. He wouldn't have been lucky to have Iroh as a father. If anything, he'd be lucky to not have him as a father. Lu Ten died. So that's a ding right there. That's a pretty easy thing for me. The Fire Nation begins its invasion of the North Pole, and Katara tells Haku, you know what? It's time for all the ladies. We're finally gonna be in this battle. We need their help.
Forget your pride! This is about the survival of the waterbenders. You need all the help you can get.
I guess this is just trying to be a nice woman moment, but I struggle with the logic here. None of these women have ever been trained to fight anyone. All they've been taught is how to heal, and as it turns out, healing people is famously a really important thing to do during battle. So I say, you can fight Katara, but let's keep the ladies healing for now. I know this seems like a really small point, but to me, stuff like this is the difference between a show feeling authentic, you wanting us to take its woman characters seriously and root for them against their oppression, and the show wanting us to clap like seals because women were allowed to do a thing. It takes the audience out of the world, out of a sense of immersion. That's how I put it. Okay, Momo. Momo time. Momo o'clock. It's Momo time, baby. The firebenders are coming in strong, and they hit a pillar with one of their blasts. It's about to hit somebody, but then, oh my god, Momo saves their life. For the record, Momo essentially is not in this show. Like, he has one or two quick shots, but his part is way cut down, probably because Netflix didn't want to use CGI all the time. What this means is that Momo jumping into this scene, it feels like it comes out of absolutely nothing. Oh, Momo did it? Momo saved the day? That shriek as he jumps, too. Oh my god, it is blood-curdling. But that's not all. In his heroic quest to save this random lady, Momo almost dies. He sacrifices himself. And then we get to see Sokka cradling the limp body of this repulsive CGI creature in his arms.
Keep alive.
No, Momo. Please don't die. Please don't leave me in this world without you. It's not the end for Momo, though, thank the Lord, because Yue dunks him in some spirit water and resuscitates him. I'm pretty sure that's the whole reason this scene exists, to tell us there's healing moon water, and I gotta admit something. The show going out of its way like this, spending like a full minute worrying about Momo, just to establish a pretty unimportant detail about magic water, I like that. That's camp, actually, and I wish the whole show had this energy. Momo, we all love you. Don't scare us like that again, little guy. We all love you so much. Please, Momo. Please, Momo. Momo, please. God, fuck. Zuko tries to capture Aang, but Katara gets in the way and fights him. Zuko says this.
Little peasant! You found a master, haven't you?
A line from the original show, but now this is how Katara responds.
Yes. You're looking at her.
And oh, how I hate that line. I hate it for two reasons. First, this is just the show refusing to give its plot any weight at all. Like, Aku is a misogynist, right? He refuses to treat Katara because she's a girl, and you think that would be kind of mean. Denying women an education usually has the effect of making women not have that education, and that sucks because Katara needs a master. That's a big part of why she's here. But Aku never actually trains Katara in this version of the show. It doesn't happen, and here it's revealed, oh, that doesn't matter at all. He can be a misogynist and it will have literally no impact on her waterbending abilities whatsoever. He's a master. He became a master at some point. Second, the line's just a bit cheesy, isn't it? It's wild to watch this show and juxtapose the lines they stole from the original with the lines they wrote.
You little peasant. You found a master, haven't you?
Is a banger line from a cool adventure show.
Yes. You're looking at her.
Is cringe. That's the one time I'm using that word in this video, so I hope you enjoyed that. Zhao captures and kills the moon spirit. Oh, how I love him.
I can wipe out an entire race of benders. Can you imagine what that's like? I am a legend now!
And Aang looks at the corpse of the dead spirit and has this weird moment where he flashes back the guidance all the other avatars gave him.
Need the Avatar. He's putting your duties above all else, even your life.
The Avatar has to make the impossible choices, placing the world's needs ahead of your needs.
The Avatar's power is great, but it pales before the power of the elemental spirits.
At this point, I have no idea why he's having these flashes, what duty he has to put above all else, what impossible choice he has to make. Then he steps forward and Yue says, "No, Aang, don't do it. If you merge with the ocean spirit, you'll be destroyed or whatever."
Aang, don't do this. You'll be lost forever.
This is like the climax of the entire episode, and so it's probably a shame that I just don't know what's going on here. Before Yue said that line, there was absolutely no indication that it would be bad if Aang fused with the ocean spirit. Nobody mentioned the effects of spirit bonding. Kuruk didn't say, "Oh yeah, that would be a big mistake, Aang, you shouldn't do that." Instead, they set the stakes at the last possible moment after the big flashbacks. Oh, and by the way, it would be bad if Aang fused with the ocean spirit. You shouldn't do that, and you knew about that all along. It's a moment that looks important and deep, the protagonist's sacrifice, but because the show didn't put the work in, it just doesn't feel like anything. It's just boring. In the original show, Aang becomes a giant fish ocean boy. He finds Zhao, the one who murdered the moon, and drags him down to the depths. Zuko tries to give him his hand to save his life, but Zhao is too proud. Zhao acted with hubris, killed a god, and now the gods take their vengeance. It's really cool and satisfying and poetic. In this version, Zuko and Zhao fight. Zuko wins, but Zhao tries to get in a sneaky shot, and Iroh just dunks him in the drink. Flop. Dead. That's crazy, right? But they thought this was a good change? That's the end of Zhao. Dunk. So Aang's traipsing around in the ocean, his soul is lost to the beast, and Yue tells us that he will search for his partner, the moon, forever.
All that's left is a vengeful spirit who will roam endlessly looking for its partner but will never find it.
Here, Katara gives Aang an emotional speech, one that's essentially borrowed from the third episode of the original show.
Hey, don't be an idiot. You're not just the Avatar, you're my family. This is your world.
It's pretty wild that it feels so much more emotional in the cartoon than it does here. Like, they waited 8 45-minute episodes for Katara to tell Aang that he's her family, and even then, I'm like, no he isn't. Also, this scene is just muddy. Like, yes, Katara gives the speech, and it seems like that does reach Aang, but at the same time as Katara's doing that, Yue sacrifices her life and becomes the moon, and the Aang ocean spirit looks at the moon in the sky, and that seems to affect him. So, like, what happened? Did Katara need to give that speech, or was it just the moon coming back? Was Katara's little emotional moment entirely irrelevant? You'd think they'd want this moment to feel simple and sweet, but they just weigh it down for some reason, make it confusing. Whatever, Team Avatar wins, they beat the Fire Nation, and now it's the next day, and Sokka talks to Yue's father about her death.
I stood on the sidelines while others fought and died, being the warrior I can never be.
Sokka, in a moment, she must have been scared. You made sure she wasn't alone. You don't have to be a warrior. Be a hero.
So before I wrote this video, I did a kind of Patreon podcast thing where I just watched through the show and gave my first impressions. And now I genuinely don't think I can do better than to just play my initial reaction to this scene. Sokka, is there a chance that you could ever think about anything that isn't your status as a warrior? This is the 5th time now in 8 episodes that you've brought up what a stinky little warrior you are. You've heard every possible reaction to what kind of a warrior you are, Sokka. You shouldn't be a warrior, you should be an engineer. You are a warrior, and a great one. It doesn't matter what your father did you apart. You know? Now this. Now we get to hear, you should be proud of yourself, because you're such a good guy, Sokka. Sokka, could you please just get your mind off of being a warrior for a second and engage with the world around you? There's so much happening. Your girlfriend or whatever is dead. Because you're talking to her father. All you have to say is, oh, I'm a pretty warrior. Could you think about something else? Could you just have another fucking thought? Because it's getting old, Sokka. It's getting old. This is what the second season's gonna be? Just, oh, I'm a good warrior. I'm feeling like a good warrior today. Oh, that's making me feel like a pretty bad warrior. Oh, I'm a bad warrior. No, stop, Sokka, please. Sokka, it's enough with the warrior thing. Thank you. Our main characters are talking, Aang is feeling upset, and they have this interaction.
And the firebenders aren't gonna know. We have to prepare for whatever they do out of next. And so stop worrying about the past and start thinking about what you still have to do. I think I understand something to the outside. Let go of the past and we're on the verge of the future.
So Katara says, stop worrying about the past, think about the present. And then Aang says, you know what, Katara? I think I understand what Monkey Atso said. I have to stop worrying about the past and start thinking about the present. This is the last we see of the main characters this season. It's perfect. So we cut to Ozai at the very end so we can hear his evil little schemes. As it turns out, Ozai didn't even want to capture the North Pole.
I would know. North was always an unlikely proposition.
5 days.
5 days to appear.
If that was the case, then
Huge.
why attack the North at all?
Oh, I guess I'll be back for fucking P3.
Distraction.
That was a distraction from his real goal, capturing Omashu. So this is a cheesy